Alright, now let's try to use a few Excel functions to summarize the data to our requirement. So I would like to have my data in this manner. Let's say I would like to enter the player name, right? Once I enter, let's say I call here name of the player. The moment I enter the player name here, I require some summary about him. Once I enter the name of the player here, I want some summary in terms of how many matches he has played, and I also require right, how many innings he has played, what is his total runs, and the runs scored in boundaries, and let's say the runs scored in sixes, and something like this. We'll try to add something more at a later point. So let's say this is the information which I require about this player, right? So the moment I enter one name, first of all the data should be updated here. So I need to use appropriate functions on this data, right? Appropriate functions on this data which will bring out this entire context. Once I have the data with me, I can plot a chart. So for any kind of Excel charting exercise or a dashboard exercise, my data needs to be streamlined. So currently this data is right from 1974 till today. So I may want to streamline the data by extracting some kind of a summary, because I would like my dashboard to typically contain a player wise complete summary. The moment I give the name of a player, by the end of 2 days program, I want the system to extract a lot of things about that player, right, and plot different kinds of charts for that person. Different kinds of charts in a dynamic. So the moment I change the name of the player there, again the charts have to be automatically updated. So person wise, and wherever some kind of an integration is required also, we'll do that kind of an integration. But the prime dashboard which we would be creating is player wise dashboard, probably his performance in the last 10 matches, right, without we interfering at any stage, or probably his top 10 scores or his performance country wise. So we can think of a lot of things about this particular one single player whom we are selecting. Year wise, how has he been performing? We'll use different kinds of charts to create a big picture about that person. The moment I change the name of the person here, the entire details have to be changed. So here I'll collect the summary. Probably some more fields will add as we move along. Here I'll collect the complete summary of that person. And from here, I'll start the charting process. I'll paste as many charts as possible, which will give me a complete picture about that one single person, right? Okay, so let's say I am entering some name exactly in the same manner. See, to bring out again the name exactly in the same manner, I could even give a drop down. But we'll talk about the drop down aspect slightly later. But right now, I'm exactly picking the name which is there exactly present in this chart, in this table. So I'm picking up the name somewhere towards the end. Any name, we'll try to change a couple of names and try to get in our values, right? So yeah, if we observe the data, wherever this person has not batted, it is showing DNB. Wherever he has played, it is showing runs against him. Otherwise, it is showing DNB. Now, this is the only differentiator on between the number of matches and number of innings which he has played. So, innings played is more of number of times he scored something or the other, or he has come to the crease. DNBs won't count as a part of his inning. Okay, so now let's say I want the total number of matches which he has played. What formula can bring out the total number of matches he has played? Sorry? We look up the total number of matches. let's say this is my data set. SUMIF will sum the total values, but if I have to count, I'll use COUNTIF kind of a feature. COUNTIF will actually count in this entire location where some criteria is met. Wherever the name SR Tendulkar is there in this list, it will simply pull out, it will count only those records and it will display the number for me. So let's say I'm using this to start with. So I'm creating a summary because based on this I want to create some chart. Once we create the runs and runs in boundaries and runs in sixes, I want to start off with a pie chart with that data, right? Okay, so I'll say COUNTIF equal to COUNTIF, and as an input I will give the range being this entire A column, and the criteria being the name of the person. So obviously it displays the total number of matches this person has typically played. This person has typically played 463 matches. So just try it out with your data, because initially you may find a little bit difficult using the different formulas. So initially we can go on a slightly slower note, but once the whole data is done, we can create our charts in a much quicker manner. Yeah. Now I can look at inputting the remaining elements. If I want the number of innings, which means I should count again the number of occurrences, but which should not contain DNB as a part of the runs. So here I'll go with count ifs, multiple conditions. One is the name, player's name should be the same, and the second condition for me is the runs column should not contain DNB. So what I'll do here as a part of the simple process is I'll use count ifs as a formula, wherein this time I have to give the criteria range 1 and criteria 1. So the range 1 for me is the same which we have given earlier. The name should match this person's name. So when I stop it here itself, it will give all the name. But we should also have that innings played is simply not having a DNB in his runs. So in case of criteria range 2, I'll point it out to this runs scored not equal to DNB, or probably I'll say greater than or equal to 0, either way, right? Or we just will use the not equal to DNB kind of stuff. If I want to use not equal to DNB, I'll put a not equal to sign in quotes, not equal to sign in quotes, or I'll say not equal to, simply let's write not equal to, and I'll put DNB. Let's say, let's test it out. If I say not equal to DNB, it simply says 452, right? Because it is simply saying it is counting all the occurrences of that person's name, but only where he has some number assigned to his name, not a word called DNB. So in 11 innings probably he did not come to the crease. So that's where it is saying the total number of innings he has played is 452. Just to test it out, we can do with some other player. The numbers are changing for the player. So which means as a part of our charting, the moment I set right the calculations, the charts can easily be plotted with that data. So the most important aspect for a chart is the data to be completely in place, completely formatted, completely updated with the formulas. So the more and more we are using advanced formulas, the more and more we can get our charts more user friendly. Alright. So these are the two numbers which I am displaying. Then I want the total number of runs which I can get from the runs column of the data. But I want to add all those runs only where the player name is equal to this name. So that is where I will use SUMIF as a formula. Again, the same way I have used COUNTIF, I will use SUMIF. So I will come here, say equal to SUMIF. I will do a SUMIF where this time I will enter the range, again the same thing. Range again being the A column, where the criteria again goes with SR Tendulkar. This time, what do I want to sum up? I want to sum up the runs. For this criteria, I want to sum up the runs. So this sum range, I will put it on this B column, which will give me the total number of runs this person has scored. So he has scored these many runs altogether. Right, where you can check out on this formula. I'm doing a sum of the entire runs column only where the A column value is matching with SR Tendulkar. So it is giving me that 18,426 runs have been scored by this person. Similarly, I can talk about how many boundaries he has scored. Again, the same logic, SUMIF on the runs column. This one. Now similarly, I can do it on the number of 4s he has scored and number of 6s he has scored. And once we have this data, probably I will think of plotting a pie chart where I would like to plot his total runs with respect to the runs scored in boundaries, 6s and others. Right. Okay, so the runs scored in boundaries, again I can do the same SUMIF. Just to get a small practice on the SUMIF. I am again using SUMIF. This time again the shortlisting criteria remains the same. The A column. The criteria again goes with, this is the name of the player. And this time I want to sum up the boundaries, which is there as a part of my E column. E column is containing the boundaries. So it will tell me that these many boundaries are scored by this person. Alright. So this is the number of boundaries he has scored. And similarly, I can do the same exercise for 6s. Okay. So I'll do the SUMIF again. This time I'll again do it on the player name. Criteria being equal to this name of the player. And the summation range this time is on the 6s, which is the F column. So overall he has scored these many 6s. So this is what is the information we have now. Right. Probably if I still want the runs scored in boundaries. So the boundaries are 2016. But if I want the runs scored in boundaries, probably I should multiply this by 4. So this number I will multiply it with 4. So these many runs he has scored in the form of boundaries. And this number I will multiply with 6. So he has scored these many runs in the form of 6s. And I will say others. Apart from boundaries and 6s, runs, how much did he score in the other modes? So from the total runs, I am subtracting the runs scored in boundaries as well as the runs scored in 6s, which will tell me how many runs he has scored through the other modes. So now on this data, I want to plot my first chart, where I would like to plot for this person what is the total runs he has scored in the, what percentage of the total runs he has scored in the form of boundaries, 6s and others. So for that, I will create a very basic pie chart. because it all requires the split between three components. So I can create a kind of a pie chart. Okay, first let me create the pie chart and then say how do we use that kind of a chart for our dashboard report. Alright, so I'll talk about for this player compute for these elements the runs, sixes, the runs in 4, 6s and others. You insert a pie chart. You insert a pie chart, a simple basic pie chart, which gives me a split between these three things. The blue identifying the boundaries, brown in sixes and green in others. Now, as the first point of any dashboard report, what we are seeing in this chart is there is a lot of space wastage, right? Any item as a part of a dashboard practice is one we are seeing that there is a lot of space wastage. One for the heading here, two for the legend here, right? So as a prime suggestion for any kind of a dashboard is don't go with a chart, try to go with a mini chart. So what I am saying by the mini chart is just try to minimize it to whatever extent possible. Now all these we will try to use some other formats of representing all this data, but as a practice better delete all this stuff. Select each one, better delete it to whatever extent possible. So you are making it as small of a chart as possible. See, at the end it's the information that needs to be presented for us. Information is more important, not the titles. So what we can very well do is once I make this chart as much simpler as possible, now I can try to present it somewhere or the other. So I can try to accommodate as many items as possible like this. Of course, here what I can very well do is instead of using the chart format, what I'll simply do is I'll try to use my worksheet here itself. Right, we'll use the worksheet function slightly. We'll use the worksheet formatting slightly later. But yeah, for time being, okay, plotting this chart. On this chart, I need to do some makeup in terms of the runs code or percentage of the runs code and all that, which I can simply, if I want a good presentation of that, I can choose the color formats of my choice. Right, the presentation and all we can very well plan out what kind of combination colors we require. But yeah, let's keep the combination colors aside for some time. Whatever is the default combination it's coming, I am going to select on that. But the most important aspect is getting into this layout tab of this chart, where we try to select the data labels, and inside this data labels I can very well think of choosing the data labels probably at the center of the chart. So it is displaying the numbers but slightly, right, or probably instead of center of the chart I'll display it in the outside end of the chart. Right, still it is showing, if I display it in the outside end it is still occupying some space. So better to have it in the center of the chart itself. Okay, I'll have it in the center of the chart. We'll try to modify that number. Then what I would also like to have is, do I want the numbers or do I want the percentages? In some cases the percentage itself should suffice me. So to present that, I can get into this more data label options under the data labels, where it asks me whether I should plot values or percentages or what is the thing. So if I select percentage and remove value, it will simply plot only in terms of percentages. Now, yeah, the leading lines I am coming to. See, when I again come back to this, if I'm just one second. In this case it is, just observe the difference between the two. See the line that is drawn between the breakups. If I remove this, it will, if you just remove this, if you see here, the moment you are putting, it is putting some kind of see the values, it is putting with some kind of a border here. If you just see this, if I remove this leader line, it shows this data. No, in this case it is not that much applicable, but when I have more of a text to be displayed, just one sec. If I this is the one. If at all it is displaying somewhere outside, it puts, if I don't put a leader line, it does not, I mean it can actually drag the value like a pointer. Probably you can look at it like a pointer, especially when my data is plotted wide away. It can actually put a pointer, especially when your data is very long, it can put a pointer and try to represent it somewhere else. But when your data is pretty small, you don't need to bother about whether the leader line is existing or not existing, because it is pretty small in the representation. Alright, so once I do this, it is giving me that, okay, this is the percentage breakup for this person. Now you can very well reduce the size of the chart to such an extent, at least the value representation is good enough. Okay, we can represent the chart in such a way that the value representation is good enough. And one more thing is, this is still a space wastage. So what you can very well do is, as a practice, we can remove the formatting on this chart. Select the chart, you just minimized it. Then I go to this format chart area. I'll say no filling. I'll remove the filling of this, and even I'll go into the border color. I'll say no line. So what happens with this process is, that entire thing is gone. The whole border is gone. Only the chart is lying. And again what I can do is, I can select this chart. Now as a part of this process, what I can do is, I'll drag this chart somewhere to my requirement. So here only the chart is present. Display wise, only the chart is present. Then I can depend heavily on the worksheet formatting. Worksheet formatting is a very important aspect in the dashboarding, where I'll say, let me just say, this is the location where I want to plot this pie chart, where I want this pie chart to exist. So what I'll do is, this entire area of the chart, I'll format it with some color of the sheet. This area of the sheet, I'll format it with some color. Let's say whatever the background color I want my graph to look like, I'll format it with that color. Even probably the headings, I'll do a merging. I'll do a format of this heading with some other color to get that kind of an impact, to get that kind of a dynamic creation in the chart, or to get that kind of a virtual good presentation of the chart. I can say runs breakup. I'll do a formatting here rather than on the chart. Now I'll try to position this chart in this area. Now I'll try to position this chart in this area, apply my own formatting mechanism, probably make it even more simpler. This is the same pie chart which we have plotted, but the more and more makeup we are doing to it, probably after a certain point, I'll even bring in some more extra text into it, right? Some kind of a text into it, and try to make chart even more interactive. But the simpler process of plotting any chart in our dashboard report is try to use worksheet formatting more compared to the chart formatting. Chart formatting is one aspect, but remove everything of the chart to start with, and the worksheet format, easier to do kind of thing. Do as much of worksheet formatting as possible, and even the text and whatever you would like to present, only the picture part let it come from the graph, rest all let it be a formatting on the worksheet, and then use that data to update it. Probably somewhere if you want the name of this person also. What I'll simply do is, because anyhow this is a worksheet, what I'll simply do is I'll simply do an equal to the name of this player here. So again the same name comes up. Alright, so this is the name that comes up. Even this also probably I can center it. I'll center it, I'll bold it. So whatever the graph was plotting earlier, I am trying to do it as a part of the worksheet formatting itself. And now I'll pull this graph again here. I'll pull this graph again onto this location. So just now let's quickly try out. The moment I change the name of this person, it will show me very clearly for this person what is the change in the breakup. No, graph is of the new person. The percentages are changed. Which one? This one? Just equal to the name of the player, to that location. The firm. I did not use the chart at all. Okay. I've removed the color, format and everything for this chart. Now what I am pulling is, I am just pulling and in placing the chart here. Right. Now the moment I am changing the name of the person, obviously all our calculations are changed. So the chart is plotted based on the calculations. So when you change the name, even there's that. So there is no logical relationship between the name here and the chart here. But both of them we have tied separately to our original data. Right? The moment, so I mean the moment you try to do any kind of formatting on the chart, it has limitations. But when I try to combine the worksheet formatting with the chart formatting, a lot of things can be generated on a dynamic way. Right? Because Excel is very much heavily known for the formulas. So the more and more I can use formulas dynamically, the charting element of it, whatever the chart representation, I'll just pick up the chart representation of it and try to paste it here. Rest all formatting I'll do using this kind of text itself, worksheet formatting itself. Probably if I want to write in percentage form or whatever, I can write it in this text itself. Runs breakup, right? I'll simply say runs breakup. I can even put in percentage. All it requires is just editing the text for me. There is nothing much. I can make the graph as much appealing as possible, because I can use all kinds of simple worksheet formats in this process. Here we can very well create the drop down. I'll show that. So instead of we entering the values, you wanted them to be in a drop down. Yeah, we'll pull them in the drop down. Okay, we'll do that part also. We'll try to pull the person's name from the drop down. So I require the list of unique people who are there in our total list. So whereas our original data actually contains a repetition of the person. So I'll do some basic editing on this, where I'll copy this entire list of people onto a separate sheet. This is one manual exercise which I have to do. All the separate people from this list, I'll try to copy into some location. Let's say in this sheet itself, let me maintain somewhere here. I'll maintain all of them in some location. Then I can even use remove duplicates tool of Excel. So I'll say I'll get into the data, do a remove duplicates. Okay, only for that column I'm removing the duplicates. So only these numbers are all elements are left which are unique, right? All the duplications of this are eliminated. Now what I can do is I'll come to this name of the player here, right? I'll come to this name of the player here and I'll say pick from a drop down list, or I'll select this player, get into the data validation aspect for him. I'll select I'll just select this box, get into the data validation. By default, it will show me any value for this cell. Literally, I can enter any value into this cell. So to avoid that aspect, what I can say is, okay, it's not any value that can be entered. I'll restrict it to a list. I'll restrict it to a list whose source is this entire column. Whose source is this entire column. Tomorrow, if a couple of new players are added, I would like to add them also to my list. So that's where I'll say whose source is this entire column. Now what happens is, we'll actually get a drop down here. Now you change whatever the player name you would like to, you change the name of the players in this list. You will get a clear-cut breakup for each of the players. You will get a clear-cut breakup for each of the players in a more effective manner. So the chart is updated for that person in a very dynamic manner. Probably if you still want to add matches played and all those things, because they are anyhow the worksheet cells itself, you can very well pull them onto, it looks as if you have pulled them onto your chart itself. So this is the first important aspect of creating a chart. Excel gives a feature of creating the chart only to a limited extent. But the moment I try to combine it with my worksheet based formatting, I can create as much dynamic charts and dynamic dashboards as possible using the Excel itself. I can make it even more smaller if things require. Right? I can pull the things in such a way that more or less, probably even a little bit more, I can think of deleting the space. It all depends on, right? It all depends on how much I can afford to condense it. The name of? Oh, here the players, right? Yeah. So okay. So probably it would not be a fair thing to delete the space like this. But what I can very well do is I'll simply delete only to this extent. Instead of deleting the entire row, I'll only delete these few cells. So I'll have to again pull this chart out. It's like I'm overlapping or superimposing the chart on the data. So I'll delete only this much. I'll delete only this much where I'll shift my cells up. Again, probably I'll delete this much. It's like I'm simplifying, or because I want to incorporate as much of data as possible, I have simply removed it and again brought my chart into this space. So my chart almost is getting getting into this area as a perfect fitting. So you can very well plan out your representation of a chart in an appropriate manner. So the usage of right kind of chart and then incorporating it along with the worksheet formatting is the most important aspect for us. So now if I just imagine that this is the size of each of the charts that we are going to plot, probably within one printout page scope I can plot 8 to 10 such charts, and that is what will display the entire health of this player, or the entire details of this player in this chart. Yeah, just try to practice it out.